Good morning, everybody, and welcome to An Unexpected Fight. We are so excited to start another episode today. Today, we have a super special guest with us, and Kelly, take it away.
Okay, good. Hello, everybody. So today we have Melanie DiTinno. Melanie is mom of two boys who are 16 months apart, Vincent and Corey. Melanie has worked in the fitness and wellness industry for 18 years. She has always tried her best to make good, healthy choices for her family, but cancer doesn't care. Melanie and her family lean on faith to get them through every day, especially during their cancer journey. Vincent was diagnosed with stage II Rhabdomysarcoma at age 4 and has been off treatments for 2 years and happily in remission as a thriving 8-year-old. Melanie partnered with the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation 3 years ago to raise money for research with a 5K race and walk and challenge. Running was a big outlet for her husband, Anthony, and her during treatment. Melanie and her family learned that no one fights alone and their children need more and will continue to advocate for their children, using Vincent's survival as a testimony of God's miracles to help others. That's incredible, Melanie. And we're so excited. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me here. You two are so inspirational for me. I follow you guys in your journey with your families, and this podcast and has gotten me through some tough workouts and times where I felt like I was alone. You both made me realize I'm not. So it's thank you for having me.
Well, we're super excited to have you. So, first, I think maybe just tell us a little bit about your family and about yourself and kind of what brought you here with us today.
Yeah, so like Kelly said in my intro, I have two boys. They're 16 months apart, Corey and Vincent. And my husband and I, you always try and do the right things as a family. We always try to incorporate wellness and organic food and, like all the things that you hear on social media, like do we limit screen times, all that stuff. Before we got diagnosed, we knew two people who had. My husband is messing with me right now outside the window doing gardening, so he's distracting me. Sorry about that. Hold on. Okay, so we knew two families whose children had rhabdomysarcoma. And both of their children passed from it. And I remember when we heard about their story, it was almost like, okay, this won't happen to us. This doesn't happen to us. And then when we got Vincent's news, it didn't feel real. And that's the only thing that we knew about this disease was those two families, unfortunately. And it was, he's 8 now, and it still doesn't feel real that it happened. But he started with night terrors at 4 years old, and we brought him to the doctor. It was like, we thought it was night terrors. It was every night he would wake up at the same time, screaming, crying. And we brought him to the doctor, and they said it's an ear infection or it's behavioral. And finally, I said, I'm not just a mom who is not sleeping. Something's going on. I didn't think cancer. I thought it was maybe like adenoids or something. But finally, after a month of trying to figure out what was going on, we got him scanned, and then we heard the worst possible news ever, that there was something found. And there was that 2-week window where they were trying to diagnose him. And then we heard rhabdomysarcoma, and it was all like something just exploded in your life, as I'm sure you guys know how that feels.
Yes. Well, first of all, good for you. Every time we interview a cancer parent, the story is very similar. You had to advocate for yourself and for your child and push. A lot of general pediatricians still think childhood cancer is rare. We're learning it's not so rare.
Right.
43 kids a day is not rare to me. That's a school bus full of kids just here in the United States. But good for you for pushing and advocating.
And I love our pediatrician. I think so we're in a practice that has 12 doctors, and I see maybe 2 or 3 regularly. And unfortunately, in that month span, I couldn't get it because we were there probably 4 times. And it was at the end of COVID, so it was still kind of weird to get in to appointments. They were still having all these precautions. But finally, when I did get in touch with the pediatrician who we use regularly, she really listened to me. And she said, just like you, Kelly, like you and your family saved him because we don't think that right away. She even said to me, like, we don't like to scan right away because you start poking at things and then you'll find that something that doesn't matter. And now we're doing all these tests for no reason. But she had told me, like you said, you advocated for your child and you saved him. So I'm not blaming my pediatrician that it took that long. I just think in general, like you said, you say everybody thinks it's rare, and then it's not, especially when you're in this world. It's like you see, new kids, new young adults just get diagnosed every day, and it's so heartbreaking, and it just fuels my heart for needing to do more. And sometimes I don't know what that is. Sometimes it's crystal clear, but I know it needs more.
Always,
Well,
always.
can you walk us through Vincent's treatment journey? So we talked a little bit about what led to the diagnosis, but what type
Yeah.
of treatments did he actually receive and what challenges did he face during that?
Yeah. So when we went and got him scanned, it's funny because, like, there's days where, I feel so good, right? Like everything, you're just like, and then there's some days where these flashbacks of times in the hospital and times when we got our diagnosis just like stop me in my tracks out of nowhere. And it's almost like I can't catch my breath. But so when we got our scan, I remember when he was 4, so he had to get anesthesia. And I remember my husband and I just kind of talking in the waiting room, like, okay, we're going to check this off the list. And then we're going to, bring it to the ENT or do some sleep study stuff. And so when my pediatrician actually ordered it stat, so they got the results pretty much right away. And I didn't know what all that meant at that time. But I knew my pediatrician from, I was a personal trainer for her before I even knew Anthony. So she had my phone number in her phone. And I remember he was waking up from his scan, his first initial scan, and I see her calling me. And I'm like, okay, maybe she's just checking in on how the day is. I see her name coming across the caller ID. Like, I don't remember the last time she called me, but okay, because then we had that pediatrician patient relationship once I had children. And so I answered it and she's like, hey, and I'm like, I'm just so happy that I see my child out. He was taken, prior to this, the only thing that he's ever had was his ear tubes. So I was so happy to just be with my child. And so I was like, hey, doctor, and she's like, are you with Anthony? Are you with Vincent? And I said, yes, Vincent's just waking up. Anthony's right next to me. And she's like, okay, I just heard from the radiologist there was something found in his scan. I don't remember anything else that she said from that. I think I blacked out. I'm not sure. But I do remember her saying, can I please speak to Anthony? So I passed the phone to Anthony, and then all the nurses drew the curtain shut in the little recovery pod that he was in. And then from there, we didn't leave the hospital for 5 days, but probably felt like a month. So we went to All Children's. They didn't tell us that it was cancer at that point. It wasn't. So the tumor, it was a 2-centimeter tumor found behind his sinuses at the base of his skull. So it wasn't in his brain, but, they had like a neurologist come and told us, this is nothing to do with his brain, but it's pressing on the base of his skull, which was maybe why when he was sleeping or when he was trying to sleep, he would wake up in pain. But at 4 years old, he couldn't figure that out because every time he lay down, that little 2-centimeter, and thank God that he was getting those because it was small, but it was still a sign for us to, yes, it was like a green light, like, hey, go get something checked out. But anyway, so then we were in All Children's at that time, and he wasn't sick, right? So he was, other than this thing that was found, like he wasn't throwing up. He didn't have headaches during the day. He didn't have all the classic signs. His blood work was normal. His eye, sometimes they say you can see like the eye, if it's in the face area, you could see one eye going inward or like losing balance. None of that was happening. But we were stuck in this hospital for a couple of days we don't know what this is. They tried to biopsy it through his nose, but they couldn't because of the location. So the ENT said, we need to get you to a different hospital, Tampa General Hospital. And I'll never forget Dr. Tabor was his name. She said, this is the surgeon that I know can do this for him. The way that it was located, it was very hard to get to without having to do like an invasive brain type of surgery or face type of surgery. I don't know. So we have to wait now. We can't just drive to the hospital because they can't do it at All Children. So we have to go to Tampa General Hospital. And I remember Vincent not sleeping. Like, we're stuck in this hospital. It's still COVID protocol. So we can't have, my other son come visit us. Can't have my mom come visit us. All the people that are on our side, right? And then they won't let us drive to Tampa General to get there. They have to get transported by an ambulance. So this little 4-year-old, he's not sleeping. I'm probably snapping at every single nurse in there because I'm on edge. I remember an oncologist come in and I said, wait a minute, why are you here? Does this mean we're going to need you? And she said, no, that's not what this means. Take down my name and number. And like, there was probably 10, I'm sure you guys could like remember back to the diagnosis time. There's probably like 10 different types of doctors coming in and gave you their name and number. But for some reason, I wrote down her number. And I don't know, like there's always, I don't know. I wrote down that number. And finally he fell asleep. And then the EMT comes to the hospital at 11:30. My 4-year-old sleeping. We have to get him to the hospital. At All Children's, my husband was able to stay with us. 2 parents were able to stay with us. So I know I'm kind of like bouncing back and forth, but it's all just like right here, So he gets in the ambulance. It's midnight. So it's like June, the beginning of June. The ambulance was freezing cold. I'm shivering. Tampa General Hospital have you guys ever been to Tampa General Hospital? Like the emergency room at Tampa General Hospital?
Yeah.
So the emergency room at Tampa General Hospital at midnight looks like a crime scene. There's beds out in the hallway. There's people who are screaming and like bandaged up. My husband couldn't come with me, so Vincent wanted me to go with him. So we get there, slide him in. I'm freaking out. We still don't know what's going on. And we get to the room, and the room at Tampa General Hospital is like so small and compared to the luxury room we just had at All Children's. And they say only one parent can stay. And I start like yelling at the nurse, and my husband's like, they're going to be taking care of us the next however long. You need to chill out. I will go home. I'll come back tomorrow morning. But I remember just uncontrollably shaking. They put like this little cot in the bed next to him. And I said, I'm gonna pass out. But if I pass out, then I'm going to have to get admitted, and then I won't be here for my child. So I held it together. And at that time, I think I got a message from God that I needed to be strong for my child. Like, this is something that I never had to experience before. And like a new strength came over me in that moment. So then we got the surgeon came, Dr. Tabor, and I think he was like not available for 3 days, but he said, I'm not going to make you guys wait. I'm going to push you guys, and we're going to get this done tomorrow. So they wheeled him away so fast. I didn't even get to say goodbye or, I love you. And I just, again, felt that feeling of losing it. And at that time, my husband was strong for me, like really. And then we were sitting in the room while he was in his surgery, and you hear other people waiting for their loved ones. And I hear a woman losing it, that I'm assuming she just lost somebody at surgery. And she was you hear her crying hysterical. And I get a call right after that from the nurse and the pediatrician that said, you need to move all in the children's ward at the Tampa General, you need to move all your stuff. Vincent's going to ICU. I was never even told that he would need ICU. So I go crazy. I remember the girl, like certain things are so vivid, right? And this girl at the checkout, at the sign-in, at the surgery sign-in, she, at that time we were all wearing masks. She had a black mask with a pearl cross on it. And I said, I just got this phone call from a nurse that we need to move to ICU. I haven't heard anything from Vincent. It's been 2 hours. It's supposed to be an hour. So she got a hold and said that he's not needed to ICU. So that was, I don't know what happened there, but he didn't need to go to ICU. Anyway, Dr. Tabor comes out and says, it's rhabdomysarcoma. So he comes out, he's sweating. He said, I didn't think it was going to be as hard to get the biopsy as it was, but it was very hard, but I got it. We don't know much about it other than that it is rhabdomysarcoma. That at that time, Anthony started going. My husband started getting, though, like he started losing it and I got the strength. So we kind of traded places. I said, well, can I see him? I don't care. Like, can I just see him? I heard some lady crying because she lost her loved one. I heard he was going to intensive ICU. Can I just see him? Like, that's all I cared about. And he said, yes, come on, let's go see him. And you guys, I think I've heard about on your podcast before that you have a strong faith in God and it's helped you through. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So we were laying on the recovery, he was laying on the recovery room and I heard like God's voice or a voice tell me that he was going to beat this, that he was going to be okay. Vincent was going to be okay and you need to be strong. So again, another sign told me he was going to be okay. You need to be strong. Anthony's on the phone, probably texting or calling every families that we knew who had rhabdomysarcoma to get, what do we do next? So then we started planning what we did next. And we had the name of a doctor from UF, from a friend of mine who does cancer research. And we had a name of a doctor from All Children's, Dr. Jonathan Metz, who's involved with the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation. And we got his name from Ricky, whose son Theo passed away from rhabdo. And I got on the phone with the UF doctor and she was talking a mile a minute. Get him to UF right now. We want to start him in this trial. We didn't know nothing about the tumor, just that it was rhabdomysarcoma. But she was like really put this urgency. Oh, we lost Tiffany.
It's okay. She'll come back. She was freezing a little bit.
If I'm talking too much, interrupt me.
No, you're perfect. You can finish.
Okay. Like if you want to interrupt me, it's just, it's nice to talk about it with moms who understand,
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so this doctor, she was talking all medical terms, really put an urgency in my heart that we needed to get to UF. And then Ricky said to Anthony, slow down. We don't know anything about this tumor yet. We know what it is, but we don't know, if it's spread. We don't know if it's got like the mutation to make it worse or better. We don't know any of that. And if you move too fast, you're possibly going to get it misdiagnosed and get wrong treatment. So let's just slow down. So then Dr. Metz called us. We finally, the doctor, the pediatrician, the on-call pediatrician at Tampa General was a momcologist, just happened to be. She put in her 2 cents. Really, her son had leukemia. So, and I don't know if she worked there all the time, but just at this particular time, she was there and she talked to me and Anthony and she said, I'm going to get Vincent home. Like typically we would probably keep him another night after this type of procedure, but I want to get you guys home. I want him to be home. I want him to, I know what you're going through. She introduced me to the Facebook pages and told me to take my time, that kind of stuff. But so we went home. I think later that night, Dr. Metz called us on his way home from work and he talked to us like just completely different than the UF doctor. It was in a way that I could understand, in a way that I felt less freaked out. And he said, we need to do certain tests. I'm all for trials because of research, but we just need to make sure that this is the right treatment for Vincent. So we did that rather than going to UF, which Gainesville, I'm in Oldsmar, Clearwater, Tampa area. So All Children's is about 45 minutes from my house, where Gainesville is a good 3 hours from my house. So there would be that whole, my other son was about to start kindergarten. We just had a brand new puppy at home. So, and in that time, our surgeon, Dr. Tabor, gave me a number of somebody named Jenny, whose son is a rhabdomysarcoma survivor. He's now in college. She talked me through every single emotion. And we got our next set of tests, which showed, I don't, you probably know some of the medical terms. So it came back, the tumor came back as the more aggressive type of rhabdo, but it had a mutation, which made it act like the less aggressive tumor. So that was good. So we celebrated that win. That was like, okay, it's acting as the less aggressive tumor. That's amazing. It did not metastasize. So it was just for that little spot. So now we're starting to, and I remember Jenny telling me, celebrate all the wins, celebrate all the wins. So then we started going, so I had a conversation with the original pediatrician, the one who ordered it stat. And I said, what should we do? Should we go to, because we got a few other opinions. We got a few other opinions from MD Anderson and Sloan Kettering, and it was split. So the MD Anderson doctor wanted to do what Dr. Metz wanted us to do. And then the Sloan Kettering doctor wanted us to do what the UF doctor wanted us to do and go through the trial, which Dr. Metz didn't want us to do the trial because he wanted us. So his treatments, to answer your question, Kelly, his treatments was the standard protocol was 10 months of frontline chemo, which alternated between outpatient infusions for a full week. So we would go to the outpatient center for 5 days, Monday through Friday, and he would get an infusion of, I don't know the combination of drugs, but that was one. And then we would do that, I think I don't remember the whole timeline, but it would alternate between that and then an admission where we would have to stay at the hospital. Vincent got very, very, very fortunate, and our admissions were always fast. We were in and we were out the next day. And that was it. So for 10 months, we had to do that. And the spot of his tumor couldn't get surgically removed because it was very close to his brain. So instead of getting surgery, we needed to get proton therapy radiation, which is, instead of like traditional radiation where they have to radiate more of a bigger area, they were able to protect a lot of areas and just fine tune that specific spot. What Dr. Metz wanted in the protocol, the standard protocol typically calls for the proton radiation to happen 13 weeks into this protocol. So for children who have rhabdomysarcoma, there's a standard protocol. As we all know, there's not a lot of drugs and treatments that are approved for children. It's typically all the same. But as we also know, it's not all one size fits all. Everything's different. What Dr. Metz wanted to do was, because the tumor was so close to his brain and because it was on the smaller side, he didn't want to wait to zap it with that proton radiation. He wanted to do it right away, like maybe a month into, maybe like, I don't even know, maybe 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks into treatments. So they wanted to do two different things. So we got other opinions, and it was split right down the middle. 2 doctors wanted to do what Dr. Metz wanted to say, and 2 wanted to do the trial. So I called my original pediatrician, and she said, I don't know Dr. Metz personally. I do know of him. He's wonderful. I also know that All Children's is wonderful. I also know that you have a very strong support system of your family, and being close to home, being close to that support system is going to help you and Vincent get through that. So that was, and the way that Dr. Metz talked to us, that was what we decided to do. So we got started right away. He got his port put in and his first set of chemo the same day, which was an admission. It happened to be on Anthony, my husband and I's 7th wedding anniversary. So that was, memorable, so to speak. We did have to spend, for the proton therapy, Dr. Metz recommended us to go to Jacksonville. So we spent 6 weeks in Jacksonville. We were able to get like an already furnished apartment to make it as normal as possible for my children. Corey, my oldest son, did kindergarten virtually, so he could be with us in Jacksonville and not miss kindergarten, and also keep the germs at bay since everybody was still kind of freaking out about COVID. During this time, 3 weeks of the 6 weeks, my mother-in-law stayed. And then the other 3 weeks, my mom stayed with us. So we were able to bring our dogs. And we just tried to make the best out of a really, really hard situation. Vincent was incredible through it all. He just was so strong that I look at him now and I'm like, you're the strongest person I've ever met. So I know I kind of got sidetracked a lot to answer your question, but
That's okay.
it's go
I did
ahead.
want to interlude for listeners that might be
Yeah.
wondering why Jacksonville, because it's kind of an important topic in the pediatric
Yeah.
cancer world. There are only so many proton radiation centers around the country. So if a child needs proton radiation specifically, which is that radiation where we're not targeting the whole brain or the whole part of a body, we're more fine tuning it to like the size of a marker tip to one area to prevent damage from healthy tissue. Unfortunately, families oftentimes do have to travel. And that's something about pediatric cancer that's good for everybody to know and understand, that you don't get to just do it in your backyard. Even if your main hospital, like All Children's for you, was next door, you still ended up having to travel hours away from home for that part of treatment. And that affects quite a few cancer families in that way.
I feel like
Absolutely.
pediatric cancers now are pretty much moving towards proton radiation just because it's so much less toxic. And, through NPCF, if you listen to some of our previous episodes, we've interviewed Dr. Kai Mawato, who is researching an even better type of radiation that we're super hopeful takes off sooner or later. So if you have,
Yeah, I think we met him at one of the summits and he was pretty fascinating.
He was there last year.
Yeah, that's the one we were at. Like, to your point too, we met, because they kept all the pediatrics together, right? Because for that proton therapy, because of Vincent's age and because of where it was, he had to be put under anesthesia every day, Monday through Friday. And I also you guys have probably seen it, but for the listeners, I'll have to send you a picture of the mask that they had to put on him. So they had to make a molding of for his face so he could stay very still. And because of his age, we had to go to under anesthesia every day, but they kept just incredible when you see the mask. Like, it's just, we have it. I don't know where it is, but we kept it. But
it's terrifying for these.
It's so terrifying.
Even for adults. Whenever
I told Vincent, because his last scan, he tried his last MRI. So he goes for his checkups. And now he's finally at every 6 months, but we had to do every 3 months post treatments. But since we hit 2 years, he goes to every 6 months. So he tried to do his MRI, which is he doesn't need to have that mask, but he tried to do it awake. And that's another image that I'll never forget from my brain. But I'm like, I don't know if I could do this awake, when I'm an adult. But we met a handful of families, children who were going through proton therapy there. One girl specifically, her name was Arlo, and they were from Australia. So to Kelly and Tiffany's point, like, they had to travel all the way to Jacksonville to get this type of radiation to save their daughter's life. It's just crazy. And I know that there's other places and other hospitals that offer this type of radiation for adults, but there's so few that do it for children. So because of his proton radiation, because it was available to him, they were able to save. And we're still fairly fresh, right? It's been 2 years. So we still have a lot of checkups and follow-ups that we need to do to make sure that all the treatments that he had to get that saved his life aren't going to cause issues later in life, but
Absolutely.
we take it one day at a time,
Absolutely. Tiffany and I will link in the comments to a picture of these masks we're talking about, because they're a necessary evil when we understand why we have to do it and how important it is, but they truly do look barbaric. And I think the first time you see it, you're like, excuse me? And these kids are literally bolted to the table with them. So we'll put a picture in the comments, because I think it's important awareness.
I don't know. So for a better description, like, these patients cannot move a centimeter when these things are bolted to the table. It's literally form fitted to their face so that they make sure that they are targeting that tumor without hitting other vital areas. And so to do that, they literally have to make it to where you cannot move. And so these masks are tight, they're uncomfortable. You're pinned to a metal table. And yeah, it's
You've
which
done
I
a
think which I think is why like a lot of, and I could be wrong, Kelly and Tiffany, you might know more than me, but I think that's why a lot of people veer away from doing this for children, right? Because they don't. So I don't know. The anesthesiologists there were incredible. I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning why is that they don't, maybe they don't want to put children to sleep
so
every day for it, or
it depends on the type of tumor, but that's a loaded question. But basically,
yeah.
for adults or for children, their brains are still growing and developing. So especially anything near your face, head, or brain, radiation can be extremely damaging for cognitive neurodevelopment. So and very young children, like it was not a option for my child, even with a brain tumor, to have radiation because she was less than a year old.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons that go into it.
interestingly enough, they at this conference I was just at, which was just for two very specific rare pediatric brain tumors, all of these doctors were pretty much in agreement that earlier radiation, even in these younger kids, is a necessary evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm so grateful that we did listen to Dr. Metz and do that radiation earlier for a few reasons, because he was still fairly early in his treatments where his bone marrow wasn't as defeated from all the chemo. So he was able to get through that radiation without having delays. It was pretty smooth. And also, because it was so close to his brain, if it grew any bigger, it would be harder to treat, because I don't think that the chemo, I think there's a lot of issue, right? Like the brain barrier from the chemo.
Yeah.
I'm probably not using the right terms, but you know what I'm trying to
You're doing a good job. So you did a really good
We know a lot about the things that we don't want to know. The side effect list that we got was crazy. So we were told that so this is like just a boast on how incredible God is and how incredible Vincent is. We were told that he might have some learning issues because of the area that was radiated. Just to your point, like it was very close to a lot of important areas of the brain, right? And we were told that the tumor, it was radiated like right here on the left side. So told that whole left hearing might be gone. He would lose his hearing in that side, which, like, okay, nobody wants to lose their hearing, but we'd rather have him here. He isn't gifted. This kid is the smartest kid I've ever met. Like, there's nothing wrong with his brain, and his hearing's fine. So the one thing that does happen is when he gets upset, his little area that was all radiated turns bright red. So you can't hide it. And we're dealing with, which is really small, for us. But I'm sure as now he's getting into that age where kids are like, well, what's wrong with your face? Very inquisitive. It's starting to, I don't know about bother him, but he's becoming more aware of it now.
So
I'm going to skip
we're
ahead
grateful.
of questions because you did a really good job of describing the difficulties and the impact it had on your family, having to relocate, all of that. Are there any specific moments of hope or joy during the time that really kind of stood out to you? Any God moments, as you might call them, that really just stood out and gave you, that extra hope during that time, during his battle?
Yeah. So I think my family as a whole came together incredible. I think it brought my husband and I closer. It made me realize like why we got married in the first place. I think for a lot of people, COVID was a hard time. And also when you have kids that are that close in age, you kind of get lost sight as to why we fell in love in the first place. So going through something like that, I don't wish it upon anybody, but it made me realize why he was my person, like we fell in love when we did. He was funny when the boys needed him to be. He was strong when I needed him to be, and vice versa. The same for me. Like when I saw moments of weakness for him, like I picked up. And that we played the different roles for the boys. I definitely had the more nurturing side, and and he had the more fun side of it, but we really, really came together as a family, and it sparked a little bit more romance. It's reignited, I should say.
Right.
And I think when you go through something that traumatic, it could go the other way as well.
Well, and I was just about to say that's a really great point to bring up, because that's something else I have personally seen. I don't know what the actual statistics or numbers on this are, but I have had many cancer families end up in divorce or separation
Mhm.
during or after treatment because, like you said, it is a challenging, traumatic filled experience, and it can kind of make or break you. So I'm very
Only the
happy.
statistics for children who've survived cancer, but the statistic for parents who have children pass away from cancer, 70% get divorced.
Wow.
Yeah, and I believe it because it's you're in a fight or flight mode all the time. It's you're and even after, like, I look in the mirror sometimes and I'm like, "Who is that person?" Like, it's you just feel, and I'm sure as moms, you can attest to that feeling, like, you're just almost don't feel like yourself anymore. Some ways are better, but some ways are not. So I could see how it could really break a marriage and a family. So we feel so fortunate that it brought us together, and it brought our faith stronger. And it also made me realize how good people are. You turn on the news and you hear about hate and people fighting. I know that's a real thing, but we also, during this journey, we met so many families who've gone through it. Uh, we've seen communities come together to support Vincent and my family and other families going through it. When we were at Jacksonville, people, put together a little care. You just see good in so many people, and as and it's so important to highlight that because the media makes people look like they hate each other. And I don't think that that's the majority. I think that the people want to come together and help each other. So we saw that a lot. And it made me want to help more. Like it gave me a purpose to want to do better for our kids. When something like this happens, you can't figure out, like, why me? Like, there's still days, where I wake up and I'm like, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to my family? You know, I look back at things. What could I have done differently? Should I have, did had different pots and pans? Was it somewhere we lived? Was it, something I ate when I was pregnant? Was it, like, did I manifest this because my family and I had a trip planned in July? I did not want to go. It was like, I just didn't want to go. It was with my in-laws. And then he got diagnosed and we couldn't go. So, like, for the longest time, I love my in-laws because I'm sure they're going to listen to this. I love my in-laws, but it was just a lot, traveling with kids, a 4 and a 5-year-old is not only as, like, ideal when you're busy, but then I'm like, was it because I didn't want to go? Like, did I just, like, manifest this? So you go through all of these reasons as to what could we have done different so this didn't happen. We don't know why it happened. And I think that that's where research needs to come in. And so when I think about it, it did happen to me. And now I can make something help others from this. And, whether it's talking through another mom who's going through a new diagnosis or talking to other moms who can relate to it more than anything, or like the race that you talked about in the beginning, funding research saves lives, just bringing awareness. There's a purpose for me and my family that we need to help others. So it gave us a passion to, really make a difference for our future, our kids and the moms.
Yes, I love how much you're helping. It's, I feel like it becomes a part of being a cancer parent is trying to help other cancer parents. And not everybody's
Yeah.
able to do that. And you're so inspiring. And so tell us, we talked a little bit at the beginning about the race, and tell us why you picked a race and why you picked National Pediatric Cancer Foundation, just some of the things like that.
Yeah. So his treatments altogether, his main treatments were 10 months. And then I don't think I mentioned this, but he did 6 months maintenance after. So like altogether, his treatments were like about a year and a half. And during especially those 10 months when it was grueling, where, his counts were very low. And like I said, everybody was still kind of on edge with COVID. We really tried. Our main job was to get Vincent better. So we kind of put things on hold for a little bit. We didn't go to like Busch Gardens. We didn't do like the big crowd stuff. But Anthony and I ran. Anthony was able to work from home, and I teach fitness, but I did only like Zoom stuff during that time. I didn't do anything in person. So we would just run. We would set monthly goals for ourselves. So like the first month, I think we set a goal to run 50 miles that month. And then we got all the way, I think, to 80 miles at the end, or maybe 90, I don't remember. But we had this board in our garage, and after every mile, we would write how many miles we ran, and then an encouraging letter or encouraging words to one another. And then I remember one day I was running, and I come back and I'm like, organize when this is all done, let's organize a race to raise money for pediatric cancer research. And he goes, that's so funny, I was thinking the same thing the last run. So we were thinking about like what was important to us during treatments. Like there's so many organizations out there that do lifestyle stuff, which is so important. People who need extra money to live during this time and keep the kids motivated and happy. It's so important. But what saves lives, and we know there's not enough of, is research. And why is everybody saying that it's rare? We knew two people prior to this who lost their babies to this, and they're our friends. Like, it's not just like we knew of them. Like, there are like in our friendship circle. Like, how are you saying this is rare? At the same time, somebody I went to college with, or not college, we worked together. Her son was diagnosed with leukemia. A couple of months prior to that, somebody that we knew, that son had a brain tumor. Like, why is everybody saying this is rare? So research saves lives. And that's what we knew. Ricky, who's on the board of NPCF. We know that Dr. Metz is on the board of NPCF. So we contacted Dave, the CEO, and we told him at the end of our treatments, we told him what we wanted to do. And first, we were just going to put something small together in our backyard. We were just there's like a park that we were going to do. And Dave was like, let's make this bigger. Let's combine our forces. We already have a walk. Let's add a run component to it. Do it at the Raymond James Stadium. Make it a family event. Get more people involved. And we're like, yeah. So that's how that like no brainer. And then we talk about like lifestyle stuff and things. NPCF also helped me so much because it brought me to people like you two, Tiffany and Kelly. Like, I met other families. They treat us like every time we're in the presence of somebody that works with them from PCF, they treat us like we're royalty. They make us feel heard and so special that yes, they fund research, but they also make you feel like there's a family. And it's lonely. Like, being a cancer mom can be so lonely, but it doesn't have to be, because I remember the doctor at the TG that I said in the very beginning, that the on-call pediatrician at the TGH, who's a oncologist, she said to me, this is a club that you never want to be in. It's the worst club ever, but the people that you're going to meet in it, they're going to be life-changing for you. And it's so true. I mean, it's like the best people are in the worst club. So that's why the race, that's why NPCF, and just
Tell us how it's grown over the years. So we know it started off, it was still a pretty decent race even the first year, but tell us how much it's grown. When is the next race, and how can everybody get involved and sign up?
Yeah, so this will be our third year doing it. And I know from the first year to the second year, I don't know the exact numbers. I'm not the numbers one in this situation, but I do know that it's doubled in size from year one to year two. And it seems like it's going in the same direction for the third year. This one's going to be May 31st at Raymond James Stadium. So where the Bucks play, which is really cool, which was like, it exceeded my dreams, and my husband's as well. I think we envisioned this little park race. It's just like a small handful of people, not that, but so I always get emotional when I'm there and even when I'm planning for it because it exceeded my expectations, and kind of visioning this race while we were going through the thick of our treatments helped me stay strong, what God told me to do. So listeners can sign up on the MPCF website and you can create a team. There's a walk, there's a run. Last year we added a stadium
Stair step
climb stairs. Yeah. So now you can climb the stadium stairs. You run through the stadium, you end on the field. There's a whole family event at Bucks Beach prior. So there's like spray on tabs and snow cones, and the Army guys are there. And this year I'd really like, my husband and I are really trying to get other family, like we really want to highlight all the warriors. So like do a special race or a special, we're not quite sure yet, but do something special where we see all of the survivors, all of the kiddos there. Just because I think seeing that will show, and it'll connect other people. Like I met other people from our first race who I didn't know were there, and just inspire people to donate because it's not rare, or I don't think it is. It doesn't feel rare,
No.
I mean, it seems like everywhere I turn, there's somebody else getting diagnosed. So I don't know.
On that note, Tiffany and I were at 2 separate research conferences at the same time just this past week. And I got pulled aside by one of our doctors and said, Kelly, can you come out into the lobby? I said, yeah, okay. There was a cancer parent whose son was recently diagnosed with a rare brain tumor who just happened to be walking by the Marriott and saw all the pediatric cancer stuff. And he said, am I in the right place or what? What do I do? I gave him my card. We're connecting now via email so that I could help them kind of navigate their diagnosis. So like you said, it's once you're a part of this community, you see it everywhere and you realize just how not rare it truly is. But you're right. It's a fabulous community. There are people out there who want to help. So like always, I'll link my health navigator in here. Tiffany can put on the comments how to sign up for the race.
Thank you.
So I think it's incredible what you're doing, Melanie.
Yes.
Well, it's incredible that you guys do this and have this platform. I know that there was one where you talked about PTSD, and it was just came at the exact right time for me because in that week, every little thing was giving me PTSD, smells, sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came across my newsfeed and I'm like, I'm going to listen to this. And I was like bawling, like, oh my gosh, it's not just me.
You're not alone.
You guys have a great platform.
We're super happy that we can do this and that we got to talk to you today. If you could go back and tell yourself one thing right before you heard the words that he had cancer, or like right after that, is there something that you would go back and tell yourself?
Oh my gosh. So, the hardest part was the waiting to figure out what our step was. And I think just to take every day as a celebration, to appreciate every single thing, and that to lean on faith and lean on your support system, and that you're going to be stronger because of this. And, just trust and celebrate every day.
Absolutely.
We recently met, there's a local girl, I didn't know her prior to this, but a local girl that somebody said, hey, I think this little girl has the same cancer that Vincent had. And I reached out to the mom on Facebook, and they held a benefit for her. Her grandparents own a restaurant. They held a benefit for her. And I've been emailing the mom for about a month. She's going through pretty much the same protocol Vincent did, except it's a little different because it's in a different spot. So like just the timing of the proton. And I met the little girl's grandmother. And this is kind of going back to your question. I met the little girl's grandmother and I said, this is Vincent. And she goes, oh my gosh, my daughter's been telling me all about Vincent. And she just started bawling her eyes out Because when you're in the middle of it, which they are in the middle of it, you don't see the light at the end. So seeing Vincent 2 years out, smiling over there, she was like grabbing his face, like crying. You don't see that light. There's that no hope. So look for the glimpses of hope when you're in the middle of the fight, because as far away as that light is, you'll get there. So it was really beautiful to see that hope that she had when she saw Vincent sitting there, healthy, full head of hair. He's got some meat on his bones, like just he just inspired her and gave her hope. And I just hope, I pray that every mom, family, child, person going through it can have that same hope.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that hope with everybody today.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on here.
If you wanted to leave the listeners with one final thought, what would that be?
If you are in the middle of treatments or getting a new diagnosis, the hardest part is that beginning, that waiting part. When you're in it, celebrate the wins, and then just hold on to your loved ones so much. And you're not alone. As much as you might feel like you are alone, you're not alone, and I think now that navigating life post treatments, or post this diagnosis, it's still very much a part of me. I don't know if it's going to get easier every scan. I don't know if every ache, pain, headache is going to feel less anxiety ridden. So also give yourself grace, because I think that's something that I need to do, is give yourself grace and allow yourself to fall apart, because it's okay. It's okay. There's times where I've screamed in my shower, in my bathroom. Allow yourself to fall apart and give yourself grace. And that's also a reminder for myself, because right now, sometimes, everything's going so good. Everything's beautiful and the boys are healthy. And I'm like, oh no, this is giving me PTSD. Like, what's going to let you know? So it's okay. It's okay to feel that. And, life is beautiful. You want to have a new perspective of life. Sit in at a children, as sad as it is, go sit in a children's oncology unit. Those kids are amazing. They are going through hell and they have smiles on their faces. And even their parents, they are amazing. I very rarely complain of a headache ever now, because it's so small compared to what those kids are going through. It just gave me a completely new perspective of life.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's beautiful.
Thank you. And I know, as for you guys as moms, how do you get past the days where you just look at yourself and are like, who's that person? There's a pre-diagnosis and a post-diagnosis version.
Yeah.
I shared a lot through my own social media about I'm not the same person that I was 3 years ago. I'm not, and I can't be, and I never will be that person again. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that you grow and you learn, and it changes your perspective of what's really important. And through that, I think that you're able to learn and grow and be the new person that you've become. So just embracing that change has been difficult, though, because I'm very different than I was 3 years ago.
Say yes, absolutely. I see that difference
I
too.
don't think I could really say it any better than Tiffany, but yeah, just overall, my perspective on life is, it's different. You really do learn to, like you said, take in the little moments, those moments of joy, and how important family really is. So again, thank you so much, Melanie, for being
Thank you so much. This was so fun to talk to you guys and allowing me to kind of just ramble on about it, because
you have a beautiful story to tell.
Thank you. And I think for somebody going through it, don't be afraid to share, to write about it, because it is a form of therapy, and it's sometimes just good to tell it in your own words. And I know that sometimes when you write about it or talk about it, you have to realize that it's real, that it is happening, and that it did happen, but it also feels good to share. So thank you for allowing me to talk and share, and thank you for listening and being there for everybody who's going through it.
Absolutely.
Again, we're going to link all of our contact information, Kelly's Health Navigator program, the link for the race.
Thank you.
Show notes. And this wraps up another episode of An Unexpected Fight. Thank you all for joining us on this journey. And we hope that you have seen some resilience and hope throughout Melanie's story. Share this, connect us with others. If you want to be a guest on the show, you can comment on any of our social media or send us an email. But together we can shine a light on pediatric cancer and create real change for these incredible warriors. Y'all stay strong, stay hopeful. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.